All right, mate. How you doing? Welcome back to another episode of IMO. Seb has joined me again, and today we're talking about this new ruling that's come in about heading the ball. Under 12s no longer allowed to head the ball in football training. We're going to talk about if we think this rule is right. We're going to talk about why it's come in and all that and more in this episode of IMO. So let's go. Bosh. So, Sebi, this is an interesting one to have you here on because when it comes to heading, you and I have got very different histories. You're not a bad header of the ball, but I used to have to head the ball a lot more than you did.
Yeah.
And I had to make it part of my game more than you did as a taller player and someone didn't have as good feet, ultimately, which I can say.
Of you.
Yeah, heading was a very important part of my game. Now, let's talk about the rule, first of all. It's come in, under 12s can't head the ball in training. They can head the ball in training, but it's got to be a different kind of ball, right?
Well, yeah, they're saying that they can do heading practice with like sponge balls, for example, and real footballs will still be used in games, and that's an important thing.
You can still head the ball in matches, yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
So what could happen, first and foremost, is people won't be as good at it at that age, and there might be less cultured use of heading part of the game under 12. Does that matter? My first thought is look at things like Spain and futsal and indoor, tiki-taka, five-a-side. It's no overhead height. Some countries don't have you play 11-a-side football until around 11, 12 years old. And I'll be honest, I think it's usually around 11 you start playing full-size 11-side games.
Yeah, it's
but
12, I think.
I don't think it's that beneficial.
Anyway. Yeah.
I don't think it's that beneficial. The amount of times I can remember looking at a goal and seeing a goalkeeper in the goal and thinking, there's no point in you standing there. You ain't going to be able to get to the other side of the net. Like, you have these 12, 13-year-old kids in full-size goals. How much is that doing for them? How much are you learning about the striker's ability to finish, really, if the goalkeeper's not that big? So are we not better off just having small-sided games until a certain age anyway?
I think there's a big philosophy on that, isn't there? I mean, certainly also there has been analysis that football has changed so much, and this has all come off the back of recent studies that have shown that ex-footballers are 3.5 times more likely to suffer from things like dementia because of potentially repetitive bangs on the head. We've got to look at some of the things in that, because it's a very serious and real problem. It's a very hot topic right now, and there's a lot of things happening in that space. There's maybe some more information we can link below on that, for example.
Well, the first thing you've got to look at anything, and we've got to also make sure people don't think we're medical experts in any way.
Absolutely
and the world is getting much more conscious of these things, and I think that's good. Things like concussion, it's changed American football and English, soccer or whatever you want to call it, football, massively, and that's good. These are improvements in the game.
Yes.
But you've also got to take into consideration other things. For me, to play devil's advocate, what statistics have we got on people developing dementia and brain injuries and issues in later date? Obviously, those people are going to be of a certain age.
Yep.
They headed a different ball.
Yep.
They physically headed a different football. The balls back in the 70s and 80s and before that, they were leather, and there is proof on them causing damages because they soaked up a lot more water, and you were basically heading a ball that it felt like it weighed twice as much. We used to have a ball like that, and when I headed that ball, it did hurt.
But also, football is a very different game there. We don't play anywhere near as much direct, certainly not at the top levels, not played as direct.
Yeah,
so there is analysis to say
still plenty of it in non-league.
But yeah, that's true. At the elite level, the stats do say there's a lot less heading in football now. Therefore, you could argue that it may become less of an important skill. I always think the set pieces will be big. But here's one thing I'll say in general, because one part of me feels like it's great, especially with what it could do for maybe youth football and developing more possession-based football, technical, which is one thing the English national team have always tried to install, started to try and install anyway.
It's a very English thing. The act of having a big centre-back or striker who just wants to beat someone in the air and go bang, we treasure that trait a lot more than, say, other countries like Spain do.
Yeah.
It's just a fact, and maybe we need to evolve.
Yeah, I think there's a big benefit to that. But talking about evolving, nothing stays the same forever. Nothing. Like, it will change eventually. Football will change again. We've had VAR, we've had goal line technology. We're all very protective over our game. There's no way in 100 years' time, maybe beyond any of our times, new generations, football will be so different. The world will be so different. It happens in little tiny stages, and this is just one of those little movements. You can't keep something the same. The world moves on. But then we learn more about our bodies now and more about dangerous things, the various dangers there are to our body. If there is a correlation between people heading football for long periods of time, then why should you spend, just because it's what we've always done and it's what we've grown up seeing, why should you continue to do it?
I agree, but I would add this to this. It hasn't changed. All that's changed is training. So should the matches change? Because I know what will happen. I don't think, from what I know of, and we obviously have certain circles, and there's a thing called an echo chamber when you're surrounded by people that think the same things as you never hear a different opinion. But from what I've heard, I haven't heard anyone be that outraged by this. But if it was to come in at game level, now, of course, youth level is one thing, and I'm actually a proponent of maybe just getting rid of 11-side or even more than 5-a-side or 7-a-side up to like 12. You can just play indoor or whatever. You can play small-sided games, no overhead height. get better at the act of football, then people can learn how to head the ball. However, and I'm not saying it ever will, if there was ever a suggestion of taking heading out of football, that would be met by a lot of criticism.
Well, I used to do youth coaching in America, youth soccer coaching, and I was always amazed at how many of the kids would turn up with headgear and goggles and glasses and things. Like,
play soccer?
Yes. Crazy. Different culture. That was, again, over 10 years ago. Yes. Headgear, goggles, like the David glasses. But
you're at the wrong place.
No, there'd be 3 or 4 out of, say, 20 that would be, like, fully, like, look like they're going skateboarding.
Wow.
Yeah, different culture. Again, over 10 years ago. I don't do that anymore, so I'm not up to date with the latest things. But yeah, quite.
People take it serious. I mean, I don't mind that. That's good in a way. But obviously, and you talk about elite sport. I don't really think of elite sport when I think about this rule, because the vast majority of people who are playing under 12 are never going to get anywhere near elite sport. This is the rule for all youth football. We're talking millions of kids that are going to be affected by this. I'm going to throw one other thing in there about the heading argument, which is, so I started football late. Unlike Seb started playing football much younger than I am, and he was a much faster developer than I was, and I came into it late. I suddenly developed a love for it in my really early teenage years, 12, 13, 14. I was well behind. I was not very good. And I know some of you are going to say I'm not very good now, but I was much worse than I am now. And I was struggling to get in teams, to be honest. I was struggling to get in local teams, unless I make them myself. I'm fine if I make the team myself.
It's a good strategy.
I'm not even in the Sunday team anymore. What's going on? Sack the chairman. But the point I'm making is this. I needed a way in, and my way in was heading. And it's 100%.
I'm just
you can
saying
ask
that these days you might need a different way in.
Well, this is what I'm saying. Is I had I wouldn't say gift, but I was lucky in that I was quite tall for my age at the time. Now I'm 6 foot. I'm fairly normal height, but at the time, 13, 14, I was one of the tallest people in my year, and I had a massive aerial advantage, and I used it to get into teams. And I'll be honest, if you watched me play, 13, 14 years old, I literally put my head on everything. And even the balls on the floor, I was so much better with my head than I was with my feet. To the point where, and this is probably something which we're saying might maybe come back and bite me in older health, I used to go in the garden, and just like Seb might have gone in the garden and put penalties in the top corner and practice that, I used to kick the ball as high as I could in the air and head it to nobody, with no one else there, for hours. So I wanted to get as good at heading the ball as I could, because that was my thing. And honestly, when we had a goal kick, the old team I used to play for called Haybridge, our tactic was I played left back, but I would just go straight into the middle of the pitch and I'd win every header and head it back. It's the only reason I was in the team. Now, this may be this weirdly unique case. The point is, it's an element of the game that you can get better at. You take that out of it, then you made the game less
and let's
diverse.
be honest, you can at 10, 11 years old, but if that does happen to move further into the different age groups and you can't practice with a header till you say 16, you can't learn to head a ball with a foam ball. Like, you can learn the very basics at 10, 11 years old, like how to do it, keep your eyes open, have shoulder position, but you can't glance a header on or start putting balls into the bottom corner from crosses. It just doesn't work.
No, and then heading, the actual connection of your head with the ball is only one element of heading. It's also so much about the jostle against the opponent. And
watching the ball move. The foam ball is going to move completely differently.
It's going to move completely differently. You know, we've got a player at Hashtag in the Sunday team called Zach Clark, you remember from the Hashtag Academy first series. One of the best headers of balls I've ever seen. He's about 5'7", but he's about his jump. He times his jump so well, and he gets that head of the play. Phil Martin,
the
first
chapter
1
Hashtag,
great header.
Just play 11-a-side games with the foam balls as well. Problem solved.
So just swap everything to foam balls.
There you go.
If we're talking about new rules in sport, by the way, I can't believe this has come in before they've changed the weight of a cricket ball. And I know that sounds ridiculous, and cricket fans are going to call me an idiot now, and I'm not a huge cricket fan. I like cricket, and I played it as a kid, but that ball is dangerously heavy. Dangerously heavy. I nearly lost my head when I was working at the bar at the Essex County Cricket Ground, and I was working the bar, and the bar was the VIP bar on the boundary. And I turned round to serve someone a spirit they'd ordered, and the bottle of vodka next to the spirit I was getting drink from smashed right next to me. I turned around, everyone in the crowd was looking at me because someone had hit what must have been a 6, I think, or a 4 that bounced. It bounced into the bar and smashed. If I'd been giving that person a different drink, I would have got that ball in the back of the head.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. Like, obviously, the golf ball is very hard. But the thing is, the difference with that and the difference in cricket is that you're not trying to hit your head on it. And obviously, at the same point, you are.
But you are aiming for the crowd. You're aiming for the crowd.
Yeah, true. The people surrounded the batsman, even the batsman himself, that can all wear helmets and things. They wear head protection.
Yeah, it's more for the fans, not so much for the sport. But we have seen people in cricket die with helmets on. The ball has hit them in a certain area and they've died, and that's happened recently.
Someone in a cricket fan had
No,
a
no, no,
helmet
no,
on?
not a player.
Oh,
I'm
player.
talking a player. So I'm
Oh,
saying
really?
even the players aren't necessarily safe with helmets on,
Mm.
but obviously people in the crowd
I
haven't
mean,
got helmets on.
you've got to accept some level of risk when you're playing sport of any kind, even really sedentary sports. When you're doing any sort of activity where you're moving your body, there's always a very small risk. So what you'd have to do, and we don't have that, you have to look at the stats. How many people play cricket? How many people have died? How many people... Well, this is the thing with the football. The football studies come in and shown that footballers have got this increased chance of dementia. But I would counter that as well, and I don't want to belittle that in any way, and say that what about the health benefits of football? What about the cardiovascular? I think there's a stat that shows that professional footballers tend to live about 3 to 5 years longer than the average
How many
man.
people have lived longer
Because of the health
Yeah.
benefits. So you've got to off-weigh those things. You don't play football, you don't necessarily have all these heading potential injuries, but you might not have the social benefits,
But
the confidence, the mental health.
The difference between the cricket ball scenario and the heading one is very simple, which is this heading one is a silent killer. You don't know it's doing you any harm.
Yes.
And we're talking Stampy's behind the camera here, big lad, big header of the ball for hashtag. He said that after every time he plays football, he has migraines. One thing I used to always notice is when I play in the sun, in the summer, the more I head the ball, the more my head hurts afterwards.
Yeah.
And you don't. That sounds obvious, but in the winter, I don't
How can
notice
it not?
it.
How can it not? I mean, as you said, you were right to say I can't really speak too much to this because I probably headed the ball less than 50 times in my life in a game. Like, I just don't do it. I jump up, I try and get in people's way, so I don't know. I've never sat there and headed the ball 50 times in a game. I've never had that issue. But I can't imagine it doesn't hurt afterwards.
No, and we know a player very well, Jimmy Conrad, and he won't mind me saying this. He suffered multiple concussions in his career. He had to retire early. Now, the concussions were not from heading the ball; they were from head collisions. But as a result of that, he wasn't advised to head the ball again.
Yep.
If you go back and watch some of the hashtag games Jimmy Conrad played in, including the Wembley Cups, he never heads the ball. Now, what's amazing about that is how well he coped out of it. It's a different
Incredible.
story. The way he balanced his body and positioning was unbelievable. He'd just jump and chest it instead. But it can change the way you have to play the game. To surmise, I will say that we have I certainly have no issue. I don't think you do
No, I
either with
don't.
this new rule.
I think it's a good
I
thing.
think
I'm
it's
happy with
good
it.
because it applies to training. I'm just fast forwarding a few years. If this starts to prove to be a thing that's causing more problems as the years go on, are they going to change heading from the game? I think it's a big part of football. I know it's called football, and you use your feet, but you also, goalkeepers use their hands. There's throw-ins, and there's headers, and there's shoulders, and there's all kinds of body involved. Head, shoulders, knees, and toes. And I just think that if you take the heading out of the game, it will be a shame. That rhymes.
That does rhyme. It's a good way to wrap
Should we end it on that? Anything to add? You happy with the rule?
I'm happy with the rule. I think that the only way it will go more into it is there's more studies that show it really is a growing problem, and that will have to be seen. But for now, I'm quite happy with it.
Yeah. Okay. Let us know in the comments below what you think. Someone watching this might even be under 12. They might have just been told they can no longer train with that ball. A lot of you guys might have your strong opinions on this. I'd love to hear them in the comments below. Drop a like on the video if you've enjoyed it. Check out Seb's socials and links in the description below. We'll see you in another IMO soon. Until next time, don't go changing.